Alrighty, this is part 5 of making a laser tank for Dungeons and Dragons using VCK. And in today's episode, we're going to have a look at my prototype gun creation system to stick some ordnance on top of the laser tank. In slot 14, we have an artillery component with a capacity of 10, which is about £1,000 worth of ordnance. We might not fill all of that up. We just want like a machine gun and maybe a few missiles. Before we do that, I'm just going to have a look at these tables I put in the engineering options book, size and dimensions. This just expands on the table in the VCK core book here. So we pick a ratio between length and width. Tanks, cars, and that kind of vehicle have a 2.5 to 1 ratio. Our laser tank is mass 7, so we use this row here, which gives us 50-foot length and 17-foot width. However, we've been using the plating rule, and there is a modifier for that. Before we added the composite multiplier, the laser tank's plating value was 4. So on this table, we reduce the size and dimension by 2 steps. So from here, we go up 2 rows, and that gets us 30 foot long by 12 feet wide. And what do you know? My initial estimate was about right. There we go. 30 feet long, 12 feet wide. Anyway, guns. This is my master gun design table. So using this, you can start with either a target weight or a caliber you want to use. And then there's various modifiers which take you up and down this table. Let's make a heavy machine gun. So we'll choose a caliber. How does half an inch sound? 12.7 millimeters, like an M2 Browning. So that's this row on the gun design table. So with no other modifiers, there'd be a £15 weapon costing 120 gold pieces. But that's going to change. This caliber table here tells us the base impact damage of a projectile and its range. So again, with no other modifiers, it would deal 3d8 piercing damage with a normal range of 400 feet and a long range of 1200 feet. These vehicle weapons have a range about 3 times greater than what a handheld weapon would be. So you could in fact use these tables to create handheld firearms by dividing the range by 3. Here's our first modifier. We are making a futuristic machine gun. So we add 1 to the range. By that it means 1 step greater on this table. We'll start making some notes here. So .50 caliber, 3d8 piercing damage. +1 range. Let's move on to the design options, and the first thing we need to pick is the barrel length. So this is rated in this way with an L value. This is the ratio between the caliber of the bullet and the barrel length. So if we picked an L80 barrel, if our caliber is half an inch, that is a 45-inch barrel, which is about right for a heavy machine gun. Let's go for that. So this increases the size and cost by 4 steps, the impact damage by 2 steps, and the range by 4 steps. And we will be using a long ammunition, which I'll come to later. Next thing to choose is the loading mechanism. Here are the choices: muzzle loader, breech loader, slow and fast auto loaders, light and heavy automatics, and light and heavy rotary guns. It's a machine gun, so we want automatic. Now, in game terms, the main difference between light and heavy is that you can make burst fire with both, but heavy automatics let you use continuous fire or suppressive fire. which I believe I wrote some rules for that in VCK Artillery 3 for those hand-cranked Gatling guns. So we note down heavy automatic, size and cost +4. And finally, the weapon mount. Now this gun we're going to have as a coaxial gun with the laser cannon in the turret. So we choose the fixed mount, which doesn't change the size and cost. Our total adjustments are +2 steps for the damage, +5 for range, and +8 for size and cost. If I just go split screen for a moment. So the 3d8 damage, we go up 2 steps, so it's 4d10 damage. Range goes up 5 steps, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 1,000, 3,000 feet. And size and cost +8 on this table. So we start at the 1/2 inch caliber and go up 8 steps. That's this row here. So it weighs 70 pounds and costs 240 gold pieces. And in terms of fitting it into the artillery component, it has a size of 0.7. Burst fire. So burst fire is a rule presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide. A firearm with burst fire fills a 10-foot cube with bullets, and all targets in that cube need to make a DC 15 dexterity save or be hit by a bullet. In my gun design rules, we have variable rates of fire, and the maximum rate of fire is determined by the caliber and loading mechanism. So for our .50 caliber gun, heavy automatic, the maximum DC is 17. It uses long ammo, which decreases that by 1 to 16. So the burst fire would be DC 16. Over on this table, we can see that DC 16 means that each burst expends 15 rounds of ammunition, and you can fire a maximum of 3 bursts every round. As you can see here, there is an optional rule for extra strikes. Basically, for every 5 points you fail the burst saving throw, you take an extra bullet. So if our machine gun shoots a burst and you're in that cube and you make your dexterity saving throw and you only get a 6, you've been hit 3 times. We will have a closer look at ammunition now. And this table tells us the weight of 1 round of ammunition. So 50 caliber, long, 0.3 pounds per bullet. At this stage, you would decide how big a magazine or a belt for your gun would be. Since a burst for our machine gun uses 15 rounds of ammunition, if we make a belt of 150 rounds, that's 10 bursts. So 0.3 times 150 is 45 pounds. We could even make it a 300 round belt for 20 bursts at 90 pounds. Let's do that. And the cost for standard ball ammunition is the weight times 0.2, or 1/5. So that ammunition belt is going to cost 18 gold pieces. Other ammunition types are available. I'm still working on the details for these, but you would have access to things like armor piercing or armor piercing explosive, that kind of thing. Here are the finished statistics for the heavy machine gun. I've noted that it's coaxial, so it faces the same direction as the laser turret. Burst fire, sustained fire. I've done a box out here with the optional rules. Bust fire, let's change that. Burst fire. I don't think I can reproduce the actual burst fire rules from the Dungeon Master's Guide. I don't know if it's in the SRD or not. So we'll just put a reference in like that. In a change from Artillery Book 3, where I said that sustained fire uses an additional 10 pieces of ammunition, I figured if it's continuous sustained fire, it would use up more than that. So I'm changing the rule to using 3 times the normal ammunition. So here, sustained fire will use up 45 rounds of ammunition. And then we need a magazine to store bullets in. So we'll have a magazine that stores 5 ammunition belts. The magazine can be found in the artillery component in VCK. It costs 3 gold pieces per 100 pounds capacity. So that's actually 13.5 gold pieces. I'm just going to round it up to 15. In terms of weapon size, we have 0.7 for the machine gun, 4.5 for the magazine. So we're just over size 5 out of our 10 capacity. We want to stick some missiles in, I seem to remember me saying. VCK Future is going to include a missile launcher weapon component, which comes in 2 flavors, a pod or a hardpoint. Our artillery component has got just under 5 capacity left after adding the machine gun. So let's have a look at the component tables. We could have a single 8-inch missile hardpoint, or a pod with 8 4-inch missiles. I like that idea. Let's add that. The main difference between a pod and a hardpoint is that a pod is enclosed, where a hardpoint is exposed. There is an option for putting a missile launcher in a turret, but we are going to add this on top of our laser turret. I still need to add rules for how to combine different turret options together for the different weapons. Missile launchers also come with a basic sensor, like a radar or some such. These just use the same rules as the aircraft sensors in VCK aircraft. So our missile pod will have an 80-mile sensor range. So we can add this information to our laser tank statistics. Missiles can come in a variety of different warheads. I'm going to include an anti-armor missile and an airburst missile in VCK Future. Still working on the missiles, but they are going to be homing missiles, which use a vehicle sensor to lock onto an enemy. So that pretty much wraps it up for this series. For those of you who enjoy the VCK books, I hope that was interesting. You get a sneak peek of what will be coming up in the next book. And for those of you not interested in lots of numbers and vehicles and things, why are you still here? If anyone's got any interest in me doing more example vehicles, just let me know in the comments.